I just came back from seeing John Wick Chapter 2, and it's a great continuation of the first film. For those who don't know, the first film was about a retired hitman on a revenge quest after some punks break into his home, steal his car, and kill his dog that his wife, who just passed away, gave him. The sequel picks up right after where the original ended, with him finally tracking down his car. This film was on my list of the most anticipated films of the year, but I did wonder how would they get him back into the business again. The way they did was actually pretty simple. Also, the story point that's in the trailers about the contract being put on him, that actually happens in the third act. By the end of the film, I could see how there could be another sequel, or they could just leave it the way they did. One thing though, don't go into this movie expecting a happy ending. Considering this is a revenge film, yeah, they don't tend to end happily. The film is shot great and the increased budget is put on the screen. Acting wise, Keanu Reeves was almost as good here as he was in the first one. The original had more of a emotional punch driving the story. This film was more about a sense of duty and obligation and then getting stabbed in the back because of it. I don't know if this film will be successful though, since it came out the same weekend as the Lego Batman film and 50 Shades Darker. Leaving the film, I did start thinking, why are the John Wick films seemingly better than a lot of other action films? Well, one, a simple to understand high concept story. Filmmakers can really overthink the story and feel the need to put more stuff into the story to try to validate it, or maybe to cover some of their flaws. Filmgoers, when they go to see action films, yes, they want a good story, but also great action, likable characters, or characters with understandable motivations. This is why films like the Pirates of the Caribbean get lambasted. They have the makings of a good film, but the filmmakers, and perhaps the studio, keep getting in the way of themselves. Think about the best action films of all time. Terminator 1 and 2, Die Hard, Lethal Weapon. You could explain the concept of the film to anyone in 10 words. Also, film fans are willing to suspend their disbelief a bit and give the movie some gimmies, so don't overthink it, Hollywood. 2. Great physical acting. It's tough to film an action scene, but I imagine it's even tougher to act through one. People may not think of Keanu Reeves as a great thespian, but he is a great physical actor. In these films, we see the different motions on his face, but also how each interaction affects him. John Wick is badass, but he's not impervious. Look at the first film, and at the beginning, he can take down anyone. But by the end of the film, he's so beaten down and injured that he can barely kill an out-of-shape old man. He's able to display physical vulnerability. That's missing in a lot of action movies. An example would be the Fast and the Furious films. Simple car racers are now unstoppable superheroes that know martial arts and don't lose fights. I enjoy the ridiculousness of those films, but I can never fully buy into them because I don't feel that they're ever in any real danger. Even if they did lose a fight, nothing really bad would happen to them. In John Wick, if he loses a fight, he dies. Because of that, there's always tension there. 3. Stakes and emotional component. Nobody will care about the action if they don't feel emotionally invested in the story. The first John Wick film worked because the audience believed that John really loved his wife and what the dog represented in that short of time. If the actors, directors, and writers involved pushed the bed on that point, and then the first film would have never had worked. Hell, even a film like Commando had this. Say what you want about the film, but you did believe that Arnold loved his daughter. Even though I'm not a real fan of the film series, this is why I feel the Fast and the Furious and Jason Bourne films are successful. If you don't care about them, then why bother? Don't believe me? Watch the original TV miniseries version of The Bourne Identity if you want to see proof of that. 4. Well thought out action scenes. The action scenes in the John Wick films make sense. What helps is that it's a linear story. There's a scene in the sequel in Rome where he has to escape through a concert and then the catacombs, and while it was exciting, it wasn't overdone or bombastic. He had to think his way out of it and use stealth. One of the funniest and tension set pieces is when he has to get out of an airport, but he and another assassin are trying to kill each other with silencers, but they're both trying to keep it on the down low and not get anyone else involved. Number 5. World building and mythology. A lot of action films have action for the sake of action and don't really focus on the story. Michael Bay. We don't really get a sense of how their world operates. In the John Wick films, we understand that this is a world run by mostly assassins, and that there are certain rules and decorum that has to be done. Anyone can be a hitman. See the last part of chapter 2. The assassins have their own money, safe houses, and so on. Example, the Continental. I mean, come on, the only place on the planet where you cannot kill someone, otherwise you will be excommunicado. The most recent film that did this well, I feel, are the Mad Max films. In each one of those films, we learn more about the world. In John Wick Chapter 2, we learn about the High Gate and the markers. If there is a third film, I imagine this will be explored even more. There's one final thing I want to talk about, shaky cam, or rather in this case, handheld cam. I hate these in found footage films, and I hate this even more in action films. The John Wick films have handheld cam shots, but I'm oddly okay with it. The reason why is because how it's used. It's used only in certain spots to coincide with the action of the scene. A film series that I think did this bad is the Bourne films. I know it's done for attention, but it's done to such a degree that it becomes aggravating. The Bourne series isn't the only set of films that do this, though. But why? After thinking about it, I figured that there are 3 reasons why there's an excessive use of handheld cam shots. 1, because the director or studio thinks it's cool, or they're just hopping onto a trend that they think the film goers will think is cool. While I believe this still happens, I don't believe it's really that prevalent anymore. Number 2, the actor can't perform or don't know how to perform action. I actually believe that this is the major reason. Unless you come from an action or action related background, it's going to be a struggle for an actor to do action. The most recent example I've seen of this is Scarlett Johansson in the last 2 Captain America films. Her action scenes are overly shaky, and when we do see her, it's in a quick cut. Now, this was understandable early on because she was pregnant while filming Age of Ultron and filmed the Captain America just a little while afterwards after she gave birth. It just seems though that this is starting to be a thing with her. Example would be the recent trailers to Ghost in the Shell. This is why I respect what Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves do. They do as much as their stunts as reasonable as possible, and in a lot of cases even more. This adds more realism to the action. An example would be Keanu and Common's fight in Rome. There are a ton of close-up shots showing that the actors did a lot of their own fighting. 3, the director doesn't know how to shoot action. This is what I feel is the second major reason. Nowadays, directors get by this by simply having a stunt coordinator direct the action scenes or having the second unit director do it. Which is fine, I guess, but even though if you're a director, you should really learn different directorial styles. What angers me, however, is when directors who I know can film action resort to handheld cam. Examples would be the Russo bros and Paul Greengrass. In many ways, the Russos are worse because in the Captain America films, they start off with a lot of shaky cam, but then taper off by the midpoint of the film. So it's obvious that they're covering for the actors. Well, that's it for now, so what do you think? Comment below. John Wick Chapter 2 is a great film and you should see it now if for no other reason than 1, it's good, and 2, if it's successful, then Hollywood will try more new things. And that's the number 1 complaint that people have with Hollywood, right? That they don't try anything new or risky.